Life is hard, but it's harder when you're stupid.
Can I take cocaine with my spouse?
No, sir. No, sir.
I did not call Senator Sanders an ignorant slut.
I'm not talking about buying it, but let's suppose I came in one day and the cocaine was there.
People who are bilingual, they speak English and stupid. I don't know why we have to give money to countries that hate us. They should be able to hate us for free. Looks like we're giving Lindsay Lohan the keys to the minibar. President Biden is sort of like Kevin Bacon at the end of Animal House, the cantina bar scene out of Star Wars. They wanted it like Ben wants J-Lo. I'm like Bluto in Animal House. I'm just fat, drunk, and stupid. Frankly, I can't because I can't get my head that far up my rear end. Stick it up their fact checker. They can kiss my ass. Somebody at the White House has been smoking the devil's lettuce. Okay? We cannot run the greatest economy by putting fairy dust and unicorn urine in our cars. Urinate to get off the pot. My car doesn't run off fairy dust. My car doesn't run off unicorn urine. The spending porn on pet projects, it's just chock full of spending porn. There's an enormous amount of spending porn. Next time you get in trouble, call a crackhead, call a criminal, call a meth head. It must suck to be that dumb. I don't mean disrespect, but the mayor needs to take her meds.
Thank you for tuning in, and welcome back to the Sandwich of Coherency. So, as you may have noticed, we started off a little bit different this time. Give you a little bit of comedy, a little bit of John Kennedy being John Kennedy, which is hilarious. The guy is just absolutely hilarious, and I will say that one of the things he said that stood out the most to me is there are people out there that are bilingual, speak English and stupid. And that might sound a little harsh, but you must need to be able to speak stupid to understand half the nonsense that's coming out of the president's mouth, because it's all gobbledygook, gibberish, blah, blah, blah. But that's just my opinion. No, that's not just my opinion. That seems to be the opinion of most people on the right, and it looks like a growing amount of people on the left. Because it looks to me as though, well, not just me, but most of the nation, that there is a red wave coming this 2022 election. And the Democrats are flailing and running scared. They've even thrown the idea of federally dropping marijuana charges, making it legal on a federal level. And that looks good on paper. That's a great idea. I don't see many people disagreeing with that. It's a long time coming. It should have happened decades ago. Rather, legalization really probably shouldn't have happened. Let's be honest with this. Regulation, yeah. Like alcohol, yeah. But one thing you've noticed is that anytime the Democrats are looking like they are not going to win an election, for some reason they just keep throwing marijuana out there, don't they? Every time it looks like they're going to lose, they throw legalization on the table. I mean, the same thing happened with Barack Obama. But I guess maybe that's recently. I don't know if I'd say that so much as what happened during Bill Clinton. That was a very harsh time, I guess, back in those days when you have let's be honest, he was not the best president. He looked great on the surface, but if we'd had the access to information then that we have now, people wouldn't have been saying such things or saying such idiotic things as Bill Clinton's the first black president. But yeah, that's America. That's America. And as we've spoken about before, as long as you agree with what Democrats say, then you're A-okay with them. As long as you agree with them, you can get away with saying things like Bill Clinton is the first black president. That's the kind of nonsense that they espoused. And it happened so much that you couldn't go through hardly any black community throughout the United States and not hear that. But that's not what we are here for today, so let's just go ahead and jump right into this. We are talking about the troubled state that seems to be looming over the horizon for the United States. You've got the situation with energy, you've got the situation with migration, and you have the situation with the United States literally going broke and the Democrats literally trying to spend more money than they not only have, but even have access to. Because the hope is that some idiotic country around the world somewhere would be willing to buy the debt that they're about to incur. Oh yes, oh yes. How they have brainwashed the masses. We are going to keep printing trillions of dollars endlessly with no end in sight. I guess I was kind of redundant to say it that way, but it just sounded interesting rolling off the tongue. But yes, we're just going to keep printing money endlessly. And then they turn around and tell you, oh, it's not going to cost you anything. If you're making under 400K, it's not going to cost you anything. And to me, it just seems that so many people just walked on by and didn't stop to say that, wait a second, that doesn't make any sense. Or a lot of the younger people are listening to the older people when they tell them that that is a lie. Anytime they tell you that we're not going to increase your taxes, you can be rest assured that your taxes are not only going to go up, they're going to go higher than you prospected to begin with. They're getting people used to the idea of being poor and broke and needing to go back to the government to beg for handouts. And that seems to be the big problem, is that too many citizens in the United States right now, over the past few years, after the Obama administration, have for some reason become independent. They become more prosperous. People were opening up small businesses. People were actually turning a profit. You have young people that have been turning massive profits. So you have more and more people that are signaling to the Democratic Party that the people's need for the government handouts are just not like they were in the 60s and the 70s. And it's almost as if they're doing extra work to counteract that. Oh my gosh, these people, by the time they reach 25, 30, they'll be set for life and won't need us at all. How can we sell them on their oppression and their victimhood if they are independent of us and are able to maneuver throughout society without us throwing handouts at them and telling them they're victims? Oh my gosh, they're doing it for themselves. We can't have that. How else will we continue to justify borrowing and printing money that we don't have, that we don't even give to those people to begin with? But hey, that's the state of things. But let's work our way and mosey on down and listen to some absolute nonsensical whimsies from a Democrat. And I know it sounds, oh, you can't beat up on them because they're Democrats. It's not my fault. That's the party that she chose. But Representative Veronica Escobar, yeah, she's got some very interesting things that I would really think you would need to hear. So let's just go ahead and jump right into that.
working with Secretary Mayorkas on reforming the way we process asylum seekers at the southern border. We should not be utilizing law enforcement to essentially manage or oversee or process vulnerable populations. We should civilianize that personnel and get law enforcement back to what they were trained to do. Thankfully, the Secretary has been very open to my ideas. I think it will really be a watershed moment for us on the border if we're able to successfully make this work, so that we restore dignity to the process, restore dignity to migrants and to federal personnel, and maintain our security at the same time.
You know, it's interesting. The migrants coming to the United States. Now, a lot of people might not know this, but when you come to the United States migrating legally, you don't have to deal with the Border Patrol, and you're not dealing with ICE. So don't be confused by her wording. Let's be honest. Listen, just being honest about something is not going to take away a person's dignity or anything like that. We're not going to coddle to prevent hurting feelings because of the reality. They are illegally immigrating to the United States. The reality is that more than half, probably 3/4 of them or more, are migrants that are doing it for economics. These are economic migrants. Now, granted, there are a huge number of them who are also fleeing violence of their communities and such as well, but the economic portion of that migration is still valid. Understand, when you have cartels and gangs destroying your entire neighborhood, putting your life at risk, yes, your safety is also at risk, but at the same time, you're not able to make a living to feed your family. Why? Because the violence is so high that the cartel members and the drugs and the gang members are keeping them from coming in. Nobody wants to come into a neighborhood and spend a lot of money to open a business knowing that it's going to get robbed, burned down, and shot. So it forces economic migration on top of those that are fleeing the violence. Now, understand that what she's saying makes absolutely no sense. I mean, listen, she wants to replace, because she's expanded on this before, she wants to replace the Border Patrol and ICE and agents and officers that keep the border safe with social workers. This is the reality. Unarmed, non-protective social workers. And let's be honest, we know we have cartels having shootouts at the border. There's violence at the border. We know that a lot of the illegal immigrants are violent at the border. And she wants to, replace them with social workers. Well, we've seen what happens when you replace officers with social workers. We've seen it happen throughout the United States since they started proposing this a few years ago. And lo and behold, social workers are being attacked in these situations that they're coming up to that they probably should have sent an officer to, such as domestic violence situations and whatnot, where across the board, statistically speaking, but not just by the numbers, but according to police officers themselves, some personal accounts, that showing up to a domestic violence or domestic abuse dispute case, anything like that, is one of the most dangerous situations for them. So for some reason, I do not understand what is wrong with these politicians that want to send unarmed individuals to deal with violent people. Now, we can't say that all the people coming to the border are violent. That would just be a fallacy. That would be a lie. I'm not going to say that. But if you encounter 100 people, which one of them is like, do you know which one is the violent one? No, you don't know. And you can't assume that all of them aren't. Granted, you don't know every American citizen, but, you also don't know those that are coming into the country illegally. You know even less about them. How you can't get in gathering any information about them. They're not U.S. citizens, and should they commit crimes, they can literally jump back across the border. That happens a lot. It's not just something that happens here and there every now and then. No, it happens more often than you would actually believe. Just because it's not making it to the mainstream news or your local news doesn't mean it's not happening. There's so much going on that so much of it falls through the cracks. But continuing on that same notion, I want to jump right into Al Green from Texas. Now, Al Green is a Democrat, and he is one of the few actual Democrats that I actually, every now and then I actually agree with him. And this time is one of those occasions. So let's listen to what about Al Green today.
This problem at the border is something that we've been grappling with for some time. It seems to me that any solution is going to require doing something about the conditions that would cause a mother, knowing what can happen to her child along this route, cause that mother to say, I'm going to risk sending my child north because the conditions here are such that I don't believe my child is safe. So it seems to me that we have to focus on doing something about those conditions. I believe that the law enforcement officers, I don't doubt you when you say you're overwhelmed. But what you're doing is at the border, and we have to do something beyond the border. We now have sent billions to Ukraine, and I voted to do it, and I'll send more. I want to send planes. I want to do whatever we can do to help them. It seems to me that we can do something more for our neighbors. And I think it's going to take the will of Congress to get it done. But that has to be a part of the solution. Now,
he's correct. It does have to be a part of the solution. But at the same time, he is also true. The United States has sent billions of dollars to the Ukraine. And I just think it's oddly hilarious that you have a situation happening in Europe with Ukraine. Now, granted, Russia is an adversary in many ways of the United States. But right now, what's happening with the Ukraine is a European problem. And I don't know, maybe to me, maybe it's just me, but I would thoroughly expect that the whole of Europe that has a problem with this would be the ones that are sending the most to the Ukraine. England, France, Germany, all the major players should be sending their planes, their money, their equipment to the Ukraine to take care of the Ukrainians. The U.S. should help. Yes, the U.S. would probably be spending a few millions. I'll go with millions. 10 million. 20? I'm trying to be open about it. I'd like to say that the United States should be sending zero because the billions that they've already spent to Ukraine, they should have used it on their own people. They can't do that, but understand those billions that they're sending to Ukraine, there will be a bill to pay that money back, and that will be paid by the tax-paying U.S. citizens. It's not going to be paid by Ukraine. It's not going to be paid by any of the European countries. It won't be paid by NATO as a whole or the United Nations. No, that debt will be paid by the citizens of the United States. And this is what people fail to understand. Yes, send them more money. Send them more money. Send them more planes. You cannot afford it. How much higher does the cost of living have to go for you? Are you want to be like Shannon Sharp? Are you willing to pay 20 a gallon for petrol? Are you willing to pay 30, 40, 50? Are you willing to pay $5 to $10 for a pound of bananas or some shit, just to give you an idea of rising cost of things? You know what I mean? How much is bypassing the funds of Europe going to Ukraine worth it to American citizens? The billions of dollars, like I said, as a whole should be coming from Europe. That is their neighbors. Those are the people that they are next to. And because of that, they should be at the forefront of that. The United States should not be at the forefront of that one. Assist, yes. Leading the cavalry, not so much. Because here's the thing. Al Green is correct. Okay? Our neighbors down south need help. People are all talking about, oh, we got to do something about Ukraine. People are fleeing Ukraine by the millions. They've been fleeing from the southern area from the United States like that for years. For years. And every time someone brings up the idea, hey, maybe we should go down there and do something. Maybe we should find some way to help them. Many on the left are like, no, we cannot invade their sovereignty. We cannot do anything to impede on the countries that are having their citizens leave in mass droves. The United States sends billions south of the border. Okay? We send so much money to those countries, and for some reason, the numbers of people leaving those countries, going to the United States, quote unquote, claiming asylum, skipping over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 countries in the process when they should have applied for the first one, because that is the rules. They just keep coming to the United States, and the United States keeps sending those countries millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars more, and the people just keep leaving. So there is a problem. So what is the point? I mean, whether you like Trump or not, doesn't matter. He makes a good point. What is the point of sending money to those countries still continuously when all their citizens are coming here and we are having to still spend even more money to take care of them, to keep... It's not being harsh. It's just talking about the reality of what it is. That's the truth. That is the truth. Why would you continue to keep sending millions upon millions of dollars to a country to help the country fight crime and to be able to protect and take care of and feed its citizens when they keep fleeing from that country by the hundreds of the thousands? Nonstop. So you got to ask yourself, I mean, the United States sends money to almost every country in the freaking world. And every country in the freaking world has citizens that are fleeing and coming to the United States. I mean, and look, for a lot of people, it's a slap in the face. Imagine living in a war-torn African nation, and you've done everything you could. You've been trying to get out of your country, to get to the United States, somewhere safe, legally going through the process. And then you find out that, turns out the reason you can't get in is because you're being pushed back, because so many people are illegally crossing the southern border of the United States and getting money, getting free trips to wherever they want to go, getting provided housing, and now free smartphones. And you've been fighting to come to the country legally for 2, 3, 4, 5, for some people, 10 years. I once worked with a guy who he was a translator for U.S. soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan, and The guy worked very hard, and he earned his way to be able to come to the United States. It took him years to be able, even after assisting the United States military to keep them safe, still took him years to be able to get to the United States. And when he tried to bring his wife didn't get to come with him. No. She had to wait another, I think it was like 6 years of vetting in order to come here. And to think that all she had to do was just get to the southern border. But part of the reason that it took so long for her process to go through was because the insane amount of numbers coming through the United States illegally lowers the numbers of people that are allowed to come into the United States legally. And that's a problem. But let's get to another very interesting part as we are making our way, as we seem to have a blast with poking the holes at the Biden administration. And we're going to listen to this last one. This is Scalise, and he's going to read back some things that Biden said. And, we've talked about this before, the promises of Biden, but let's hear this little list of the promises that Biden has fulfilled. Bear with it. And if it gets some tissues, it might make you sad to know that he actually went through with some of them. Sad in a bad way, not in a good way. These aren't going to be happy tears.
Joe Biden's war on American energy didn't start when he took the oath of office as president. I want to take you back to one of the presidential debates when Joe Biden fittingly was standing to the left of Bernie Sanders. If you're looking at the TV, here's Bernie Sanders. To the left is Joe Biden. And by the way, the policies that Joe Biden espoused were also to the left of Bernie Sanders. Joe Biden said as a candidate, quote, "No more drilling on federal lands. No more drilling, including offshore. No ability for the oil and gas industry to continue to drill. Period. It ends." That's what Joe Biden said about American energy as a candidate. And unfortunately, what we've seen since he became president of the United States was a constant barrage and attack on American energy. Started with the canceling of the Keystone Pipeline, which was thousands of American jobs, and a great partnership with our friend Canada. That oil was going to go somewhere. And we could have gotten that oil from Canada through a safe pipeline to America so that we wouldn't need to get oil from Russia. But Joe Biden said no. And it wasn't just Keystone. Joe Biden has not approved a single new pipeline in America since he's been president. And it's not that he's against all pipelines, as my colleagues have pointed out. He approved Russia's pipeline, the Nord Stream 2, which builds on top of the Nord Stream 1, which was already supplying Russian oil to parts of Europe. We could have been there to provide all of the oil and gas that Europe needs. And instead, Joe Biden turned off the spigots here and sent leverage to Putin, sent hundreds of millions of dollars a day to Putin to help fund this war in Ukraine. And when we look at gas prices, immediately as Joe Biden said no on federal lands, as he promised as a candidate, said no offshore to drilling, he then continued to attack through the regulatory agencies. Just about every regulatory agency out there is going after the ability for us to produce energy in America. And is it any surprise that not long after he did it, you saw prices starting to skyrocket? Not after Putin invaded Ukraine, but well before Putin invaded Ukraine, Joe Biden's attack on American energy had led to sticker shock at the pump. The pain at the pump is real. And by the way, it hits lowest income families the hardest. When Joe Biden just released his budget last week, he proposed another $45 billion in new taxes on oil and gas. That means families who are struggling already because of all the inflation, not just high gas prices, but inflation because of President Biden's massive trillions of dollars of spending here in Washington that's rising the cost of everything. He wants to now raise $45 billion in additional taxes on oil and gas. And by the way, Unfortunately, the only promise I think he's kept is to go after American energy. He also promised that he wouldn't raise taxes on any American making making less than $400,000 a year. Remember that promise? Joe Biden's broken that promise multiple times, and the latest of which is in his budget, because by proposing $45 billion in new taxes on oil and gas, the people that will pay that the most are low-income families, not the millionaires and the billionaires that he talks about in his speeches. He's going to be kicking in the gut with higher taxes those people making less than $50,000 a year. They're the ones that are going to get hit the hardest. Well, he talks about windmills and solar panels and electric cars. We're for all of the above energy. But go look at who's buying the electric cars right now. And by the way, if you bought an electric car today, you can't plug that into a tree. You've got to plug it into an electric outlet that gets power, and most of that power comes from fossil fuels, which Joe Biden continues to attack. So the record's clear. People get this. As Elise said, the American people are smarter than Joe Biden gives them credit for. They know it's Joe Biden's.
That's exactly true. I gotta say, somebody in Scalise's office must be listening to the show, because he's basically saying exactly what I've been trying to point out to people. You know, the things we've been trying to get people that haven't heard it to hear it. You know, the thing is with this fuel, Biden says, oh, just lower your prices. Okay. Well, the problem is with the increase in fuel pricing, that increases the cost of transporting goods, which in turn increases the prices of those goods. Let's not forget that we still have a shipping crisis, and it's still costing exponentially more to ship containers than it did before Biden. Hell, before the pandemic. That's the reality. So, and we're not really getting any better. And again, you know, like they said, in 2020 and going into 2021, we won't see progress on fixing the problem till around fall of this year. So we'll just have to see how that goes. But, you know, the problem, to continue what I was saying, that, you know, the cost of the fuel raises the cost of transport, which increases the prices of the goods. And Joe Biden tells people, well, the producers and the resellers, lower your prices. Don't raise the prices to compensate for the extra cost you have accrued, but no. You gotta lower the prices. So basically what he's trying to do is tell businesses to regulate themselves out of existence. You know, because you gotta ask yourself which companies benefit from that kind of idea. What businesses have enough in excess capital to be able to weather such a situation till things begin to pick back up? You see, people forget Joe Biden has been on the side of big business ever since he started his political career. He didn't hide it. He didn't run from it. He was in the pockets of the credit card companies. He's actually made policies that actually benefited credit card companies and screwed over the actual customers. Talking about a guy who has blocked protection for customers from credit card companies trying to basically rake them over the coals. That's the guy. That's your president. That's the guy you voted in office. Your financial woes, the problems you're having right now, that's all part and parcel with the Biden administration and the left cronies that follow it, that wanted it. Like literally, what's happening now in the United States is a consequence of the actions of voting for this. This is what people voted for. And it just, like I said before, it blows my mind that the loudest people that are unhappy with it are the people that voted for it. Oh, don't get me wrong. You have the people that want to say, face it. I'm happy with it. I'm happy with paying, 10, 12, 15% more for my food. I'm happy paying 3 times as much for fuel to go work at a place that I was already complaining about wasn't paying me enough to begin with. Yes, I'm happy to regulate myself out of existence because I don't have to read any more mean tweets. You're going to be homeless and then you really won't have to worry about reading any mean tweets. You see how that goes? But you should be happy with that. And that's the thing that these people don't understand. And this is what gets me every time. Why are they not happy with what they voted for? This is what you wanted. You literally voted for your own punishment, your own torment. This is your bed and you're lying in it and it does not feel comfortable. Well, the problem is that the rest of America is having to suffer with it as well. And we hope that you've paid attention, and we hope that the problems that you have created for not just yourself, but for others got through to you and you don't make those crazy decisions again. Oh my gosh, think with your brain. Not everything can be done based off of emotions. Sometimes you need to think about it. Think about the long term and realize that politicians that hide from you, don't do speeches, don't meet with the press, that basically hide in the basement, that make out kinds of outlandish, crazy promises. Yeah, that's not where you probably should put your vote. You know, that's, you're playing Russian roulette right there. You're playing roulette with your livelihood. And this time, you lost. You actually lost it for everybody. Average citizens are hurting because of these policies. And as the Democrats put it, hey, just go buy an electric car. I know you're broke and poor and now you're homeless, but go buy an electric car. That's all you gotta do. That's all you gotta do. And the thing is, Scalise makes a very good point, is that you could go buy an electric car, but that electric car runs off electricity. And most of the electricity is coming from fossil fuels. So, either way it goes, you might want to hold off on getting that electric car. You might want to stick with the fuel model. But at this point, you might want to get a scooter because the way they're pricing people out of the ability to be able to drive, you might have to do that. And don't think for one second that, oh, they're releasing the 181 million barrels. That's going to help. No, it's not. Not when they're doing only 1 million barrels a day. And when you consider that when Biden took from the strategic reserve before, prices kept going up. They shot right up. They did a little dip, a few cents dip, and then they shot up. And it just got worse. And now you're removing the emergency reserves that the nation has. Oh gosh, God forbid something actually, an emergency happens and the United States really needs it. Then what? You gonna try and beg Venezuela, Iran, Russia for more fuel? Oh, but again, you have a chance to help take away the extra power the president has, and in this midterm elections, let's see if we can remedy this. But then again, I don't think this guy is going to make it past 2022. 25th Amendment will probably be invoked to remove him right on schedule, which what I was predicting in 2019. But I guess we'll see what happens. But I thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.